In the name of the one who creates, redeems, and sustains us. Amen. Have a seat. Sorry, this is not the year I'm touching that gospel passage. Another time. We'll do it another time. Just heads up. Everybody gets a little bit excited. It's like, ooh, adultery day. Another day. I'm going to tell you a little story from a few years ago when Aaron and I went on vacation to Wallowa Lake in eastern Oregon. It was up in the Blue Mountains. It was gorgeous. This very deep, cold lake. In the middle of summer, we rented a cabin for a few days, and one of the highlights of that vacation is taking the tram up Mount Howard. There's at the top, there's this gorgeous walking trail, this loop that you make. And one of the things that they've decided to do to make this vacation an appealing choice for people with young children is that they sell little bags of nuts to feed the squirrels at the top. So now there are millions of squirrels at the top of this mountain, very, very wide squirrels, who know that people have food for them. And so we'd gone to the top. We did not buy a bag of nuts. And we had gone around most of the loop and stopped at yet another completely gorgeous, heartbreaking, beautiful viewpoint. And there was a family up there, a mom and a dad and two little girls who were about 3 and 5 approximately. Their mom had an accent. We were listening because their mom had an accent we couldn't quite place. Sometimes it sounded Scandinavian, sometimes it sounded Eastern European or Russian. We couldn't quite get it. And we were watching these little kids scramble all over. And they had purchased the little bags of nuts. So they're teasing the squirrels, right? They're running around. They're giving them a peanut, and then the squirrels mob them, and then they run away, squealing. And of course, these squirrels now are completely unafraid of human beings, and they're increasing in number, right, as these little girls are giving them nuts. And after several rounds of this, their parents decide that, okay, it's time to go. We've seen this. And the smaller of the two girls had gotten herself onto this little hill of rocks and was standing with her little bag of peanuts looking at this entire circle of expectant squirrels. And she started yelling that she didn't want to go and that she wouldn't walk. She was too tired now, and she just refused to budge. She was like, "Come pick me up, come get me." And her mother, who I think had been doing this all day in this completely deadpan, I know what your capacity is, and you have been tormenting these squirrels and created this situation for yourself. Voice looked at her and just said, "It is up to you. You can walk, or you can stay here and be eaten by squirrels." And suddenly, the little girl was, in fact, able to walk. And she went to join her family, and they all held hands and went on their way. This is what runs in my head every time we get one of these biblical passages where it is laid out, you have two choices. So Moses says today in our Deuteronomy reading, "See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity, blessings, curses. You can walk, or you can stay here and be eaten by squirrels." Okay, this is going to feel like an abrupt transition, but bear with me. I've been thinking a lot since our annual meeting about stewardship. Stewardship is something we only usually talk about in the October begathon, when we're like trying to meet the budget numbers and getting everybody to get their pledges in. But it's actually a year-round process where we constantly reevaluate how we are spending our money and our time and our attention. And we're noticing our finances are indicating that we're about 5 to 10 years behind on doing a pretty significant growth and revitalization process. And that's okay, we have reserves. And the church moves a little more slowly than the outside world. But But it's something that we will keep talking about throughout the year. There's going to be little stewardship sermons sprinkled in throughout the rest of the year. And we're doing some pretty critical thinking about how we meet growth and new folks and meet new ideas and how we stretch in the midst of that. And about admitting, as one seminary professor told me, that nostalgia is the enemy of hope. Because nostalgia presumes all our best times are already behind us instead of ahead of us. And interestingly, too, it felt really critical to me when our nation felt relatively calm to be pushing the envelope pretty hard on justice, to keep pressing us to step up and notice. And we're definitely needed now. I'm not going to stop that. But I also feel pretty strongly that right now we need to ground down into our skills and lives as Christians, our faith practices, that our lives need to reflect on a daily and weekly, monthly, yearly basis, that our faith in the world as inherently good is real, that hope is alive, and that God is not absent or dead or useless in these times. And we tend to reevaluate our lives at critical watershed moments. If someone we know dies too young, it wakes us up sometimes, right? We think, what do I still want to do? Ooh. Do I want to die without having seen the Grand Canyon? What do I want people to say about me at my funeral? This happens too at critical watershed moments in our nation's history. We see big mobilizations and make decisions about who we want to be. And I'm thinking of the event where we saw, in the wake of the ACLU's win on the ban on refugees and people from 7 majority Muslim countries, $24 million land in their pockets, like overnight. If we ever thought that financial giving was about making things run instead of mission, that is a big counter-argument. The money will fly when we're doing work that resonates. And that $24 million came from people who took a moment to reevaluate what was important to them. They gave money as a way to express what kind of people they wanted to be. And that's why we do it in church, too. At the table in this building, we talk about how everything comes from God, right? The whole creation, our bodies, the Eucharist, each other, it's all God's, and we're just borrowing some of it for a little while. And we get to choose how to use what we're borrowing in service to one another. And this means money, too. I wonder what would happen if we just thought about all money as God's. All the money in our lives, whether it's pennies or hundreds of thousands, as God's money. And that our task is to figure out how to allocate God's money in a way that pleases God. And that is part of the act of pledging, giving back to God what is already God's. What kind of person do we want to be? Which walk do we want to walk? Life and prosperity, death and adversity. And it isn't the amount when we're talking about this. It really isn't. Like, it really doesn't matter if the number is $5,000 or $50,000. It's about what that amount means to us. And the bishop says that what we pledge should be an amount that we feel or that we notice. And that's really been true here. People give in a really noticeable way, in a really generous way, and step up when we ask. And I want you to know, too, that that's true of Aaron and me. We did this huge move to Seattle. We bought a house and upped our pledge. We had a baby and upped our pledge. And we're going to keep doing that as much as we can. Who do we want to be? do we look at our whole lives, dollars and gifts and homes and clothing and intellect and kindness and family and friends, as God's? What do we want our lives to say by how we spend each of the gifts we have, by how we spend attention, how we spend affection, and how we spend stuff? In the season of Epiphany, when we're celebrating the sometimes surprising appearance and revelation of God in strange places, it might be a good idea to look in one arena that we consider too familiar to examine sometimes, which is our boring daily lives and our daily decisions. Because it's possible that God might just be peeking out there where we least expect it, hoping that we'll give God a little bit more room or a little bit more encouragement.